So I started 3 more series this week. Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to give you an update on what I've been reading over the past week. I was thinking about doing a February wrap-up, but I've already talked about most of those books throughout the month as I did weekly updates. So I decided I would just give you an update and include the books that I read at the end of February in this video. So I hope that makes sense. So at the end of February, the books that I have not mentioned in any February updates, I'll talk about now. The first one is Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. Now I did post a whole video just designated to this one book because it was so wonderful, for one thing, and I am trying to read through the Charles Dickens, all of his work. I read this with Janelle from Too Fond of Books. We had a great time with this one. We decided to read it, take our time and read a chapter a day, and it took us from January to February to do that, and it was wonderful. Again, I've already posted a whole video designated to my thoughts on this. I call it a book review, but it's not really a book review. It's more just my random thoughts about this book. So in case you're interested, I'll try to leave that in the cards. So I did read Dombey and Son at the end of last week. And then I picked up the next book in the series of Unfortunate Events. This is number 11 and it's called The Grim Grotto. I'm not going to talk too much about this because you do need to read these in order. It's about the Baudelaire children, and they are trying to stay away from Count Olaf, the bad guy. That's basically what the whole series is about. I love this series. It is more of a darker middle grade, but there's a lot of funny things. I laugh in every one of these books. I'm always chuckling at something that these Baudelaire children do or Count Olaf says or something. So anyway, I'm really enjoying this. Again, this is the 11th and I've already started the next one. In this one, The Grim Grotto, the children are taken, well, in all of them, they're taken to all these different locations. So it makes it interesting because every book has a different setting. And in this one, they are in the ocean, deep down under the sea in a submarine. And so that's where this one takes place. Again, I really enjoyed this and I am almost finished with this series. So then I did read one more book at the end of February, but I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, because it's one of the series that I want to talk about that I've just started last week. So March 1st, I decided to kick off March 1st by reading a middle grade for middle grade March. I was really excited to get started with middle grade March as well as March Mystery Madness. And I have lots of books on my shelf ready for these two readathons. I am very excited about both middle grade March and March Mystery Madness. But I picked up this one because I couldn't wait to pick it up because the cover is just darling. I love this little cover. It's called Otter by Catherine Applegate. And so I wanted to read this because not only is it the cutest cover, it wins the cutest book cover award for sure, but I love otters. And I love the title being Otter, so I assumed this was going to be about this otter being different. And that's what I assumed this was going to be about. So I picked this up because it did fulfill a couple of the prompts. There is sky and sea on the cover of this, and also it was published within the last year. So I thought win-win, you know. But I will say I didn't really enjoy this one. I only gave this one 2 stars, and I know that a lot of people love it. They think it's so fantastic, and unfortunately I was disappointed. I wanted to love it. I really did because the cover's so cute. And it's written in verse so that it's super simple to read. I did enjoy that it was written in verse. And I'm glad that it was written in verse so that it didn't take me long, because when I mentioned to my son that I'd only given it 2 stars, he said, "Why did you finish it? You know, if you weren't enjoying it?" Because normally it never makes it to 2 stars with me. If I'm not enjoying a book, if it's not at least a 3-star, I do DNF books all the time because I don't want to waste my time on a book that I'm not enjoying. But this one was so short, and so I thought, well, maybe it would get better because it is told in like several parts. So I thought, well, maybe I would like it better as I went. Unfortunately, the first part was the best part of the book to me. Now, in fairness, I was expecting something else. I had not read anything about what this book was about. I was going, just solely by this cover. And so I assumed this was going to be a poetic narrative of this fictional story of this otter, and that he was a misfit because it's Otter as in ODD, Otter. That was an assumption that I made going into this story. So as I read it, I thought, okay, that's not what this is at all. It is told from an otter's point of view. So you do get it from the otter's perspective. And I love those kind of stories. You'll see another book that I have on this stack that I read last week that is from an animal's perspective, and I loved it. And so that's what I normally love, those kind of stories, and I normally enjoy middle grade, especially written in verse. So I thought this was going to be great. However, this book is about this. It's actually several otters that were rescued, and they are rescued by this aquarium. I think it's called the Monterey Aquarium or something like that. I can't remember the name of the aquarium. The Monterey Bay Aquarium. And it's a program they have where they rescue animals and then, try to make it where they can go back out and live in the wild. I'm very interested in that. I think that is a great thing. And I love the work that they're doing because I do love sea creatures and I want all the animals to thrive and people protect wildlife. So I do respect that. However, the way this was told just did not interest me. I was frankly bored as I read the story. And here's something else too. Catherine Applegate is an award-winning Newbery winner, so it's not like she can't write a fantastic book. This book just wasn't for me. So I'll just say, unfortunately, Otter was not what I expected and what I was looking for. It is more, it really wasn't scientific, but it was more sciencey than what I was expecting. I think this would be a great book to use in a science classroom, in a middle grade science classroom. As you're studying about, ocean life, this would be a great one to read because it does at the back have real pictures of the otters that have been saved that they're talking about in this book. And it talks a little bit about the aquarium and this program. So that's great, and it could be a great way to lead into that, as well as it's told from an otter's perspective. So I did like that about it, but unfortunately, it was just a little too sciencey for me, and the way the story was told, it just didn't work in verse. I guess I'm particular about stories that are told in verse. I'm reading one right now that's middle grade that I am absolutely loving. It's told in verse, and I'm really connecting with the character, the main character in that story, because it's told that way. But it has more emotion in it, and this one didn't have that at all. So anyway, that was my thoughts on Otter. Now let's talk about the series that I started last week. So because I have 3 books here, and they are all the beginnings of series because I'm insane and I need to start a new series. No, I don't. But these are the series that I started last week. So as I said, there was one book that I finished at the very end of February. I was determined to get to this book because everyone and their grandma has told me to read this series. Ever since I started book 2, this has been recommended to me over and over. And I do have the first book as well as a lot of the books in this series, so I'm glad that I enjoyed it. But it's At Home in Medford by Jan Karon, and I absolutely loved it. So yes, you were right, I did love this book. I loved this mainly because it's set in North Carolina in a town called Medford, and these are my people. Well, as I was reading this, I could so relate because it's a small southern town. And I live in a town just like this. I was raised in a town like this. And I can relate to all of the characters in this story. So it's the story of Father Tim. And Father Tim is the pastor at the church in Medford. And it's about how he interacts with the people in his church as well as in the community. And all the different things that happen in Medford. And it's just everyday life episodes through Father Tim. And I loved Father Tim. I loved how much he cared about the people in his community. I loved the wit and humor. I laughed all the way through this book because there are some really funny scenes and moments At Home in Medford. So yes, I will be continuing this series. It reminded me of James Herriot's All Creatures Great and Small, if you've read that. The difference is that is English countryside village life told through a vet's point of view, where At Home in Medford is a southern town, small town, same thing, told through a pastor's point of view. So that's really, they're very similar in the way that they're told. There's a lot of funny, heartwarming stories within these, and they're told in episodes, just like watching a television show is told in these little episodes in everyday life. And I love that. I love that kind of story, and so I really enjoyed At Home at Medford. Yes, I will be picking up more in this series, and I have several of those already on my shelf waiting. So I'm ready to continue with the Medford series. So thank you to all of you who have been pushing that one my way. I did finally pick it up, and yes, I enjoyed it. So then I started another series, and that is the Lady Hardcastle mysteries. The first one is A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. And I did just start this. This is the first one. It will not be the last. I loved it. So I have started 2 new series because I enjoyed this too. This is a cozy mystery. It's set in the English countryside in the early 1900s, which makes it fantastic for me. I like this one for the duo. We have Lady Hardcastle and her maid Florence, and they are super interesting. They are eccentric and clever and witty. There's a lot of sarcasm in this one, which I found to be fun. I was chuckling through it. I thought it was funny. I do like the village life, of course. I've talked about that over and over, so I do love that, and that's all through here. In this particular one, again, this is the first one in the series, Lady Hardcastle has decided to retire. We get hints that she has had a super interesting life, and so we have some of that in here, but she has decided to retire to the countryside with her maid, Florence. And one day they're walking and they come across a man hanging from a tree. Of course, they think that on first glance, you would think that this is suicide, but of course, clues lead to something else, that there has been a murder, and that's how the story starts. It is filled with lots of other fun characters and things going on. Your typical cozy mystery, and I loved it. So this is the kind of mystery I want. I love these characters. I love that you think she's an amateur sleuth, but as you're reading, you know that there is more than meets the eye with Lady Hardcastle as well as Florence. So that made it really interesting and made it a little different too than most cozy mysteries that I read. So I will be continuing this one. So that was the second series that I started last week. And then my third series that I started was Shady Hollow by Janu Black. I loved this too. This was a lot of fun. Again, it's that same At Home in Medford, A Quiet Life in the Country, and this all have small towns. So I think that is a big part of what I like about all of them, because they're cozy and fun, and they have humor in them. I laughed in all 3 of these books. So there's a lot of humor, and it's just plain fun, and I loved it. In this one, though, it's different because the premise is the town is set amongst woodland creatures. So all of the characters are woodland creatures. What I really loved was at the beginning, you have a cast of characters. So you have Gladys Honeysuckle. She is the busybody, and she's a hummingbird. You have Otto the toad, who is grumpy. You have Vera Vixen, who is the fox who investigates this murder. So it's just funny, quirky characters in it, and they're all woodland creatures. And I love that it was told from the creature, the animal's point of view. It made it just different and fun. It is very lighthearted. When I looked this book up, when I was putting it in Goodreads to read, it said it was middle grade. So I thought, oh, okay, so I could read this for March Mystery Madness as well as middle grade March. But I don't think this is middle grade. Now, there's nothing inappropriate about it. It's a super simple, cozy mystery, and it's fun. but it's adults. All of the animals are adult animals doing adult things. So I just, not that they can't read it, and a middle grader certainly could read this. I just don't think they'd be interested, because most middle grade that I read are from that age group. You know, it's about a person that is 12, 13 years old. And these are all adults doing adult things, going to coffee shops, going to work, that kind of thing. So that's why I didn't really feel that it read like a middle grade. But it being woodland creatures and a cozy mystery, I could see maybe why somebody would say that about it. So anyway, you can make that decision for yourself. I loved it as an adult, and I will continue this series as well. So I did start 3 new series. I started Shady Hollow, the Lady Hardcastle mystery, and then those are both mysteries. And then, of course, At Home in Medford, I started the Medford series 2 all last week because I'm insane. No, these are books that have been recommended to me, and I'm so glad that you have recommended these books to me, because I enjoyed all 3 of those. So those are the books that I read last week. Again, I'm participating in Middle Grade March and March Mystery Madness. I'm reading some really good ones right now for those readathons, and I'm having a great time with them. But I'm not finished, so you'll have to wait till the next video for those. What are you reading? Are you participating in these readathons? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.